Okay, so the point of this video is to talk specifically about the Netflix data set because it has a complex characteristic of one of its columns. And I'm not going to do a complete app for you for this because that's not the point, but I am going to show you some basics for dealing with that genre column and maybe one or two other things. Okay, so let me go ahead and go to the lesson 14. I could do this in like the full-on app lab, and that would be fine. But because the full app lab has a couple of blocks, hey guys, keep it down for a second. A couple of blocks that you don't have yet. I want to show you how to go about using them. And anytime you want to use a block that App Lab has, but your lesson bubble doesn't have, you can either type it in or you can go to App Lab and just copy pasta into where you're supposed to be. So that's fine. Let's take a look at what we have for this. First, let's bring in the data set. Netflix import, and we need, what are the columns? Let's go movies, and let's get the data set of, actually this would be called titles, I think. Yeah, titles. And then let's do one for genre. And let's do one for year. I think I can show you how to do a sort of slider gather situation. And let's call this years. And let's get coding, although I suppose technically we are already coding. So we need to get the user's input, and let's use a dropdown. So if you look at, and here's the problem, or the difficulty, I should say, if you look at the genre column, it has strings. You know, it's all strings, it's all text, and we know how to compare text. The problem is that something like this one, Just Love, has dramas, international movies, music and musicals, and the next one has dramas, international movies, and romantic movies. So if you were to compare these two, they would not be the same, or if you were comparing against one of them. And in order to get sort of the old way, you'd have to give them the option of every combination of these, and that would be unbelievably difficult. Or expect them to type in exactly the same way. Anytime you're comparing against text that is like formatted, you know, like uses ampersands instead of and uses initial caps instead of all caps, your best bet is to do a drop down, because that way you can control the format that their input exists in. So that's good. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have a drop down, and we want to give options. Let's call it genre options, or genre drop down. Genre drop down. And the options need to, I'm going to copy this column over to, actually, let's do this. Let's go console log, genres. And then I'm going to get a notepad. And let's go like this. This is just going to make the copy paste situation a lot easier. And so let's go like this. And we'll bring this over and go like this and do Control All. Will let me, no, it will not let me. Is this just super too long? Maybe it's still running. Maybe I broke App Lab. Let's refresh. Oh no. Let's exit page. I wonder if I tried to console log too many things. In trying to save time, I've spent a lot of time. Let's see. Let's just print out the first like 100 of the genres, or 50 maybe. I don't know. This may not be the best way to do this, but we'll print genres index I, and so the first 50 genres will be here. And let's nope, I don't want to copy all that. Let's just copy this and we'll paste it here. Okay, and then I should be able to copy these into my options for the options. So first option, let's go comedies, and then cult movies. Then documentaries, and thrillers. And you could do a bunch of these. You could also just go through by hand and see which ones are actually available in this data set. But the key is what we're doing here is we're allowing the user to search for anything that has comedies, regardless of the other categories that are in it. Okay, so if we look at this, we only have 4 at this point, but you could see how many you could do. And it does need to match exactly with spacing and caps, like I said. All right, so what are we going to do? Let's have an output so the user can movie output. Output, and we are going to use a filtered list. So, well, first, let's only have it happen when the user changes the option or changes the dropdown. Changes. Let's create a global filtered list. Filt titles. And go like that. And so that's our global, but every time we click on the dropdown, we want to reset that to block it out, to blank it out. So it's going to be fill titles again. And this is, we've done this in many app before, like the percentage of good days thing, whatever. And so now we need to do something to every item in our big list. So we need to do a loop, genre.length number of times. And then our conditional, if whatever is in genres index I, if that equals what the user put in, let's just put this because I want to get that there. This is where we're going to get the text from the dropdown, from the genre dropdown. So if the genre dropdown matches, let's append. Let's get the name. Okay. Get text. No, it's no. Okay, so this is where we need to use the contains. Okay, do we have contains here yet? With okay, so if we don't have it yet, substring length. Okay, so what the block we need that isn't provided yet to do this is dot includes, which is it there? Dot substring length. No, it's not there yet. We need the dot includes block, which just is whatever your string is, then you do dot includes, and inside of parentheses, you say, does it include that? Or what is it actually including? And this is in our conditional. So if genres index I dot includes, and then open close parentheses, but we have to put inside the parentheses what we want. And this is where you would type a string, but we don't want a string. What we want is the get text. That should work. And if I did this all at the same time, it would be easier, but that's fine. Get the text from the dropdown. So if genres index I dot includes, and then open close parentheses, which would look like that. This is what the text would look like if you type it out. And make sure when you're typing out, you pay attention to how many parentheses you have and where the parentheses go. But you could also just rewind it to what I had a second ago with the pushing out the parameter thing. Okay, so if it includes that, we want to append item. What do we want to append it to? We want to append it to filt's titles, and the thing we want to append is the name of the movie at that same index. Titles at index I. So after we do this, we will have a list of filtered, and a filtered list, I should say, of all of the movies that contain whatever the user chose in the dropdown. That's every time the dropdown changes. So just to do that, just to prove it, let's console log our filth movies and filth titles. So we're going to call this console log every time we click on the dropdown, and it's taking a long time to load. Hopefully this should work. Maybe this is too long. Let's refresh. This is a giant list. It has like 4,500 rows, and we're doing our best here. So we only have this happen. Only thing happens is on change. Genres index I dot includes is not a function. All right, so how are we going to do this? It doesn't accept it as a function. Let's just type this out. What's up? I'm missing a what? Oh yeah, yeah, spelling counts. Thank you. CLUDES. I thought it wasn't accepting it. Is it going to all turn purple now? Yeah, that's what it should. It should be all purple. That's why I was confused. All right, so let's try again. Does it include, if it includes thrillers? I bet I need to refresh again. Let's try again. And let's run it, and documentaries. There we go. Okay, so these are all the movies in that full column that has a documentary. Okay, let's do one at random because there's not really any, the random output thing, moderately useful. Actually, it's probably more useful in this than it is in like the weather app. But let's do a find random. In fact, this is only going to be one thing. So find rand movie, and I'm not typing. What's up? Oh. We're going to sort through the filtered. In fact, let's have a filtered genre. I'm not doing the year thing yet. I might do something. Filt genre. And I want to append items to filt genre at genres index I. Guys, keep it down for a second, please. Okay, so after this runs, we are resetting, and we need to reset filter genres every time. And so after this, let's, hey guys, little quieter, please. Get random movie. And I'm only calling this one place, so it doesn't really need to be in its own function, but that's fine. Okay, so we need to find a random movie from our newly filtered lists. So we need to start by getting a random index. Local variables fine. Rand index needs to be a random number between 0 and however many items there are in the one of the filtered lists. They'll be the same length. Filter titles. What's up? Sure. Dot length -1 because we just want a valid index. G length -1, and then we can let's set the text. Set text of movie output to fill titles index, rand index. Index rand index. Then let's do a new line. And then filter genre index rand index. And let's see if this works. I feel like I'm missing something. Let's refresh it. I wonder if this data set is so big it just bogs down Chrome more than it's bogging down AppLab. I mean, I guess it's the same thing at this point. Yeah, there we go. And so every time we do one, it will switch. And let's do 2 new lines. And wow, this is getting tedious. Oh, there we go. All right, so every time it's picking a random one that contains thrillers, even though the full length of the genre category has many other things. Okay, and all right, so that's good for filtering. Let's do one for year. And I want to do a slider. And let's do a label that controls the year. Label, or that just holds the year. And what is our range of years? Well, let's just figure out from this table what is the range of years. So let's do a for loop. And let's go through the entire, sure. Yep. Let's make a variable called oldest is going to get the first item in years, index 0, and youngest is going to get also the first one is going to get years index 0. And then for titles.length, number of times, if years index I is less than oldest, oldest is going to get years index I. If years index I is greater than youngest, spell it right, youngest, then youngest gets years index I. And let's console log oldest and youngest. And this is all running off of right away. And this is all just to figure out years index I is gets, if it's less than, that means it gets old. No, oldest gets years index I. And so the youngest movie is from 2020 and the oldest is from 1946. So let's go here and make our range 1946 and the maximum value 2020. I guess by 1 year. I can't see why it wouldn't be that. And let's just set our text to, let's just call it year output. Let's call this 1946. And we're just going to make sure that the slider works first. Let's call this year slider. And we need an event handler for the slider, which this is a great shortcut for those of you paying attention. If you go to events, you can click on this and it will bring in an event handler for that thing. So that's the slider. So on event slider, let's make a global variable. We can get rid of all this. This was just to find that stuff. Let's make a global variable called user year. And we get started at 0 or anything. It doesn't matter. Let's just call it 1946 because that's when where we're starting. So on event, year slider has input. User year is going to get that number. Get the number of year slider. And that will gather it for any sort of conditional calculation thing. And then we also just, for the output, we want to set the text of that of year output to user year. And now when we do the slider, it should update. There we go. And so that works. And we are gathering that variable so we can use it in our conditional. Okay. And so we're going to put that in here. We have our years, our full list of years, and this is going through our full list. So first, this is checking to see if the text matches it, but we are going to nest. We could do an and situation. Yeah, let's just do an and. So if genres index I includes whatever they drop down, and then the extra thing goes here, and years index I double equals user year. Okay, so if it matches the text and the user year, we can append it to the list. And and so set that to our list. And so we would get an error if we don't have an example that matches the genre and the year. These are going to be empty because we empty them every time. So we need a conditional to keep them from breaking it. So if one of these filtered lists is 0, we need to, if filter list, filter genre dot length is greater than 0, we can do what we wanted to do originally. But otherwise, we want to set the text of our output of no examples for that. Movie output. And sorry, try again. And so this is only running on, when we do the genre drop down, let's have it on a button because we have 2 parameters. And before I'm only running it on the drop down, let's just call this go. And go, and everything's going to happen when I click on go. So when go button is clicked, it's going to get the text from the drop down and the year from the slider or the default one and add it up, and let's hope for the best. So are there any comedies from 1946? Sorry, try again. What about comedies from 2020? That's one of the random ones from them. Let's see if we can get, again, a different one. Hey, okay, so it's working. Lovely. Are there any cult movies from 1970? There is one. Okay, so there you go. There's a lot of programming and a lot of basics. The key takeaway from this is the dot includes. The year thing is more than I would expect, but there you go.